So here's the thing about posture. I'm filming outside today and you'll probably hear my chickens in the background as I'm talking, so you're getting the full farm experience today. But it's good for me to be standing up to show you really what's important about posture, which is kind of showing the world that you're confident in your playing. So that's really the most important thing that posture is conveying to a viewer, but also it's structurally important because it's making your tone sound a lot better. What you want to look for in general when you're playing, especially when you're playing lead, is for your fiddle to be straight out, parallel to the ground. So you don't want it to be crunched down like this, and you don't want to lift it up this way. If you crunch down like this, chances are gravity's going to work against you and your bow is going to drift this way, which is going to create really weird scratchy tone. Likewise, if you do it this way, your bow is going to want to drift towards your face, which could create some cosmetic problems as well. If you've got it straight across, technically you've got a lot better chance of creating good tone because your bow has a fighting chance to stay right in the middle where I told you earlier it needs to be between your bridge and your fingerboard, halfway between those two. Visually, this also tells your audience that you're confident. If you're crunched down like this, you look a little bit embarrassed to be in front of the crowd. You look a little bit awkward. Even if you're not necessarily feeling that way, you can be accidentally conveying the wrong message. If you're like this, you're probably going to look really uncomfortable and stiff because it takes a lot of work to keep it above that parallel level. When it's up like this, you're really having to sort of lean back, your neck's sort of crunched in a weird way. And yeah, it's just not going to make things easy for you, and it's going to look a little bit awkward to the audience. So yeah, straight across is the answer. Sometimes you'll notice fiddlers on stage, we do tend to get tired. So when we're doing something like chopping, which doesn't require any notes, at least sometimes it doesn't require any notes, then we might let the fiddle slide a little bit just to give ourselves a break. But that's one of the most important things about fiddle posture is to keep it straight across like this when you're playing lead. Another thing you want to watch for is what you might call pancaking your hand. That just means that your hand is sort of collapsed up against the fingerboard of the fiddle. So when you're playing lead, you never want to be doing this. Why? It's because it's cramping your fingers. They can't reach to the ideal locations on the fiddle where they're supposed to go because this muscle is all cramped up and bent. When you have it like this, your fingers can naturally arch over, and that's going to create a lot of space where you won't have squeaking from your fingers accidentally brushing at the strings. And overall, it's going to give you this nice tunnel through your hands. Let me see if I can adjust that. Yeah, you've got a tunnel right there, which is what you want. And it creates this sort of graceful arch downward. So when you're standing here, again, you're going to look for that straight across, parallel to the ground for your actual fiddle. And then you want your hand to just drape down this way. So no collapsing up like this. See the difference? This is what you want. So not this, this. And it's going to immediately change what you're able to reach with your fingers. I see some people struggling with where to put their chin exactly on the fiddle. The temptation is to put it directly into the chin rest, since it's called a chin rest and we naturally assume that our actual chin's supposed to fit straight into that scoop. For me at least, I'm not built like that. I can't turn my neck that way and be comfortable just fitting it squarely in there. So I kind of have to lay this side of my face into that chin rest, so it's still mostly my chin, but not directly on, it's from the side. So that sort of allows me to see everything nicely and also to look out at the audience. And ultimately, because I've built a good balance between it resting on my shoulder and my thumb and the base of my pointer finger holding that neck, I can ultimately lift up my chin and look at the audience when I'm not super focused and needing to really dial in on what I'm playing. Don't try that until you're super comfortable with just your standard posture, which is putting your chin down and holding your fiddle like this. Start with that, but ultimately you want to have this nice balance between resting it on your shoulder and then this sort of acting as a pincher to hold it in place. This doesn't need to squeeze too hard though. If you're really clamped down like this, again, any sort of clenching on fiddle is going to limit your abilities in some way. You want everything to stay flowing and smooth. This takes time because when you're giving something effort, you automatically want to clench down on things. So don't be frustrated with yourself when that happens. It's just an instinct that you will want to fight at first, and it'll become very natural to you. Some classical teachers will have a very specific set of instructions for how you should position your legs and your feet when you're playing. In genres like bluegrass music and country and old time and just kind of the folk related genres, you're not going to see rules that are that specific. It's more about personal expression. So there is room to kind of stand like you want to, but here are some general guidelines. Whatever you do, you just want to be firm on your feet where you're not going to feel like you're tipsy, and you don't want to look awkward and cramped. So if you're like me and you have a tendency to cross your feet for some strange reason, try to avoid doing that during performance or practice, because it's going to probably tend to throw off some balance in the things you're doing up here as well, because it's sort of twisting your spine and your whole skeletal structure a little bit. So just make sure that however you're standing, it sets you up for success. I tend to sort of stand like a sailor and that makes me feel confident, so that's what I do. But there aren't, in classical, sometimes you'll see that you need to have 1 foot forward and sort of 1 foot back like this, and that's wonderful and beautiful, but it's not that strict in most genres. Also, I really take the opportunity when I'm on stage to move around a lot, so I really can't keep it in one specific sort of stance. So I just allow myself, I wear shoes that are gonna be easy to move around in, and then I just move how I want to, but don't do anything that's gonna throw off my balance. So don't cross your feet, don't stand on your tiptoes or anything like that, or stand on 1 foot. I'm guilty of all these things, that's why I'm addressing it. Just give yourself some balance and you'll be good to go. So that's really all there is to your overall posture on the fiddle. I've already covered what to do with your bowing hand, which is really important, getting those nuances down. And so today we've kind of covered the rest of it, how we need to stand, how we need to hold the fiddle. And once you've got these down, which will take weeks, give yourself permission to take days and days to get this right, because it just takes time to train your body to do something it's never done before with an instrument it's never played before. It makes perfect sense. So don't rush yourself, be patient with yourself, and ultimately you're going to build these really beautiful habits that are going to springboard you into success on the violin. A good practice strategy at first, especially when you're developing these key techniques that really take a lot of practice and muscle memory to get used to, you want to stand up for those, just because when you sit down, everything tends to slump a little bit because you're trying to be in a relaxed position, and without knowing it, you're probably letting your body relax more than you realize. So the first few weeks at least, stand up for most of your practice just to get that feeling ingrained in your muscle memory. I remember when I first started going to weekly jam sessions at this place called the Cook Shack in Union Grove, which was one of the best experiences of my life. We sat down for the jam sessions, which was really nice because it let you jam for a long period of time without getting tired. But something that happened to my posture, I was between probably 7 and maybe 11 years old during that stretch of time, is my elbow started to sag because I was sitting down and I was sort of resting my arm, and my posture sort of changed, and even when I stood up it would be sagging a little bit, so I had to correct that. So just watch yourself. Posture is one of those things that you're going to have to keep on checking in on, because it's hard to fight gravity all the time, and fiddlers kind of have gravity working against them. So it's something that you just want to gently check in on and kind of run through a checklist in your mind of things you're doing right and things you might be doing wrong and need to just tweak a little bit. You'll be glad you did in the long run. It'll make a big difference in your presentation and your tone and the way you feel about yourself.